When you think of hard-nosed, division-hating football, you think of one division in particular, and that is the AFC North. And that is exactly a division we're going to break down on our NFL Division Preview Series. Welcome, football fans, to another edition of IDP Plus Bets. What is up, folks? I am one of your hosts here, the Degen Doc, and I am joined by my brother in degeneracy, Pittsburgh Steelers fan himself, Mr. Derek Bennett, aka Professor Locks. Here we go.
That's right, man. Here we go.
It is time for we did the NFC East, and I was all giddy talking about what I believe is the best division. Now we move over to your folks up north with the AFC North.
With the team with the most Super Bowl titles.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm pretty excited for this one. Although last year we did pretty well with this division. We finally, like you said, we finished the NFC East in our last episode. We're completely through the NFC, starting the AFC off right with the AFC North, and we did pretty well last year.
Yeah, both profitable. But I was a measly 5-5, obviously giving out some plus money, so up a couple units. But you 8-2.
Yeah,
on the season futures for last season. So obviously this is your division with your home team Steelers there. So you owned it last year. So
you gotta focus in on the
get those lasers focused
a little bit.
Yeah, we are talking smash mouth, hard nose, cold weather football. And that is the AFC North. And we are going through our betting locks division preview here. If you are just joining us as your first division preview, first of all, welcome. Thank you for joining us. Like Derek said, we've been through the NFC, but the way this works, we are going to go team by team. We're going to talk free agency, additions, who they lose. We're going to talk, expert injury analysis. We've got fantasy football takes. And of course, we're going to give out our best bets for each team, at least one per host per team. And let's get on into this awesome division. But we do have some news because football is closer. And with every day football gets closer, there becomes more and more news and more relevant news. So a couple of topics I want to talk about pretty briefly. None of them too crazy within their own right, but definitely things that we should make sure you guys know. We'll start with one of probably the biggest surprise, at least for me. Seattle Seahawks released tight end Noah Fant just a couple days ago. We're barely a month away from the season, heading into training camp. Release, they're expected to be tight end 1 on the season. They drafted out of the second round Miami tight end Elijah Arroyo. AJ Barner showed a little bit of flashes there. Are you surprised by this? I mean, he was kind of thought to be the number 1 tight end going into
no doubt. I mean, it's definitely surprising, especially timing wise. But it seems like they've been making a shit ton of moves over there in Seattle all off season, especially when it comes to the offensive side of things. So yet another one. I'm hoping that they're seeing a lot of good things out of Arroyo. Because like you said, very surprising that Noah Fant, basically their tight end 1 over the last couple years, just letting him go.
Yeah, after 3 years and fairly productive. Basically they said unless you're JSN, every pass catcher just needs to get off the team. DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, now Noah Fant. You got rid of Geno Smith, so maybe it's just time for a breath of fresh air. I don't know. I was a little bit confused there, but obviously that means they like what they have in Arroyo and Barner.
Right.
I think Arroyo is the more exciting prospect. Depending on who you ask, though, a lot of people are apparently AJ Barner fans. I'm gonna say we talk fantasy perspective. I think the rookie is probably the one that I would be targeting, but you got to see where the ADPs line up. I mean, if Barner is free, there is a chance he could win that battle. So, I mean,
Yep.
it just kind of depends on where the chips lie. Obviously, this news is pretty fresh. So, depending on where it's at, I think Arroyo is the better player straight up. But I
Agreed.
have a feeling that's going to be the consensus, and Arroyo's ADP is going to be, a lot lower than Barner, making Barner pretty free. So, that's going to be an interesting one to track there in Seattle. Also, one of the legends as our childhood slowly dies in front of our eyes.
Yeah.
Big Philip Rivers, Chargers put out a great tweet. It was just the gosh darn best. Obviously famous for talking a bunch of shit. In the word.
clean shit.
Exactly. A lot of shiitake mushrooms, as they say. That great clip of him throwing a huge touchdown and just like yelling in the Jags defender's face. And yeah, definitely probably someone that has a punchable face as a defensive player. But
Yeah.
Philip Rivers, great career as a Charger, was signed with the Chargers for a day to do that, symbolic retirement.
Right. Right. Yeah. No. Again, kind of a strange thing coming out now because I do believe the last time Philip Rivers played football was 2020.
Yeah,
And 4 or 5
the
years
Colts, right?
after his last snap, we finally officially get the retirement banner or whatnot. I mean, it's kind of like we talked about in Ndamukong Suh doing the same thing just a few weeks back, and yeah,
Yeah.
definitely an absolute stud, especially in
Maybe
the regular
him
season.
and the wife decided to, collectively get the tubes tied there, and they were like, "Well, if we're gonna not have any more children, then I guess I
We
don't
are
need to."
retiring from on multiple accounts.
Right? Maybe he was just holding out place in case he needed little Jimmy to see him play a snap or something like that. But
That's right.
maybe that's what he did. But yeah, that is interesting.
Maybe
Why?
in order to purchase a school bus to carry around all of his kids, he had to I don't know show
No more money in the body. Get
yeah
out of the
something I
cryo
don't know.
chamber. No more of the Tom Brady TB12 diet. Couldn't afford it anymore. Got too many
Exactly.
mouths to feed over at the Rivers household.
That's right.
But yeah, no, I guess Phil Rivers is officially retired today, so that's interesting. A couple other things here, really quick. Will Levis, remember that guy?
Yeah,
Yeah, Mayo
yeah.
Man himself.
It's kind of a
Not really great.
another strange timing thing.
Right. He's
Um,
officially out for the season with a season-ending shoulder surgery.
yep.
You tell us why that is so weird that we were just hearing about this now.
Yeah, I mean, I believe it was an AC joint related injury that
Right.
happened. I believe in like week 2, week 3 of
Mm-hmm.
this past season. So
Mm-hmm.
I fully understand trying to gut your way through the season. I believe he missed a couple of games,
Right. But the
or they just
writing
turned
was
the hands over or turned the ball over to Mason, and he didn't show a lick of anything
right.
as per usual. But yeah, I fully understand trying to gut your way through the rest of the season.
Right.
The Titans were never in anything. Why didn't this take place in January?
Absolutely.
Because
I-
if it takes place in January, depending on exactly what they had to do in there, there's a chance that you're ready for training camp in this upcoming season. He may have, missed the season anyways, but waiting until July 21st when we're recording this and OTA or and training camp has already begun. It's like why are we waiting to have this surgery?
Yeah, no, I think like you said, after the season, or even like because look, he writing was on the wall. He probably understood this is my last
Sure.
opportunity to prove myself.
Yep.
Didn't do a lot rookie year, made a lot of mistakes, had a little bit of promise, but they said year two we'll roll with you. You'll prove to us if you can be the guy. He was
Yep.
probably doing everything he could, get it right as a gamer,
Yep.
as a competitor. But then yeah, after the season, or maybe he's like, okay, I want to go into if I'm the starter, blah blah. When they drafted Cam Ward #1 in April, I mean
Right.
that's the last
Yes.
possible time you got to be like, okay,
Yes.
I need this surgery, right? Because we're talking at least 4 to 6 months. At least in April, he's got a shot to play during the season.
Right.
But to do this a month before, that just didn't make any sense on any
Not
front.
at all.
I don't know how he's gonna re-enter the league after this. I mean, I don't think the tape's very good. Who knows? Because guys like somebody who I'm gonna go on a little bit of a rant, still are in the league. But Will Levis out for the season. We'll see if he ever really resurfaces as any type of QB there. And then lastly, just Trey Hendrickson. We'll mention it a little bit, but a little bit more optimism on the negotiation front.
Yep.
They were just kind of talking today, the Bengals and coaches and ownership, and a lot more optimism than in the past. Looks like they're at the table. They're getting closer to a deal. Can't say the same for their rookie Shamar Stewart. Looks like they're digging their heels in and basically saying, like, we have all the cards. Like, either you don't play, kid, or you sign the damn deal, which I don't think is a great approach, but the Bengals are the Bengals. So, but yeah, that is our news front.
Quite a bit of stuff already coming out, and training camp is just started.
It's only going to continue as we get more and more. I will say, there's a decent amount of players that we're talking about that are getting put on the PUP right now, and I'm going to put some lists out over the next couple of days, so definitely check it out over at the Degen Doc on X. But just a quick reminder, PUP right now doesn't really mean, it means like gives you an indication on where they're at injury wise, which is why I think they're valuable, but it doesn't come with any, like, they can get off the PUP at any time at this point. It's when we cut down to 53 players, near the beginning of course week 1, that's where you will mandatorily
kind of that week between or week or two between the last week of preseason and week
1. So just want to throw out that caveat, because if someone's on the PUP now, it's probably not a great sign, but it's not the end of the world. Whereas, if they're still on the PUP a couple weeks from now, close to a month from now, that's where it's like, okay, they're definitely missing at least the first 4 games.
Yes.
All right, let's get into this here. And we're going to start with our first team, the one, the only, the Cleveland Browns. Yes, the Cleveland Browns, who seem to think the more quarterbacks you have, the better shot that there'll be someone who's actually maybe good at throwing the forward pass. We will see. These Cleveland Browns coming in at 3-14 last year, a little bit of a disaster season. Coincides with likely the last time we see Deshaun Watson, definitely in a Browns uniform there. Now the losses, we'll go through our losses and additions, and Derek will give us his takeaway on this. So decent amount of change really throughout this whole division. So hold your breath here, folks. Don't hold your breath. Excuse me. If you'd held your breath, you probably wouldn't last. So take those deep breaths. Here we go. DTR is now with the Eagles. Jameis Winston, great locker room guy. Just want to say, amazing pregame speech with my New York Football Giants. Nick Chubb coming off that injury, heading over to the Texans to be there, potentially red zone back. Lost Jedrick Willis, I think, is of note. Someone who they thought was going to be their franchise left tackle and just couldn't stay on the field. So they eventually cut ties there. Safety Juan Thornhill is now a starter for the Steelers. Always interesting when you get a little division rivalry there. They will play twice a year. And now we look at who they brought in. Yes, you're going to notice a lot of repeat in the positions, especially the quarterback and the running back. They brought in Joey Flacco and Kenny P. They drafted Dylan Gabriel, and they did the pity. I guess someone has to take Shedeur Sanders' pick, which, hey, to their credit, I think 5th, 6th round. I mean, he may pay off at that round. I mean, I definitely didn't think it was a first, maybe not a second, but I think it's crazy that he fell that far. And then maybe I messed that up, but Quinshon Judkins, coming out of The Ohio State University, apparently are unfortunately in some legal trouble there. And then Dylan Sampson out of Tennessee. Interesting prospect, Harold Fannin Jr., coming out of Bowling Green. I think that's going to be kind of one to watch, because what do you do? How do you use them? Deontay Johnson, former Steeler, Panther, Raven, now Brown. Cornelius Lucas coming over from Washington. And then Mason Graham, their first round pick, and a couple other defenders there. So a lot of change. They weren't very good last year, so maybe that's, addition by subtraction. But what is your take on this new look Cleveland Browns roster?
I think the Cleveland Browns really just need to give Guinness Book of World Records a call and just see, hey, is there a world record on, quarterbacks on a roster, quarterbacks that play in a season, quarterbacks that play, there you go, play over 25 years, because they just keep rewriting quarterback record books as far as guys that make starts. but overall, I honestly think this team going into the season, I have similar thoughts as last season, to be honest. I mean, their defense, they didn't make a ton of moves on defense, but their defense has been solid. It should continue to be solid. They had
Right.
some injury issues last year along the offensive line, but hopefully, well, not hopefully, as a Steelers fan, they kind of come back to the pack as far as the amount of injuries that they had along that offensive line. You mentioned losing Jedrick Willis. They have the big, ginormous mountain of Jones moving over to the left tackle spot.
Right.
It'll be interesting to see if he can fill that spot. Over the last few years, he's been more so on the right side. And like I said, he
Where
is
did he
a.
play at Ohio State? Did he switch, or was he
I
solely right? Or I know
I
it's been a couple years.
I think he was mainly right, but I'm
Yeah,
not going to
it's
say
a lot of faith.
positive. But yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, he is an absolute giant of a dude. It'll be interesting to see how well he fits in at left tackle, just because he can't move very well as a
right,
tackle, and with the pass rushers that are in the AFC North, like, you got to have good tackle play.
right. Yeah,
So I mean,
no, it's a big
position,
question
or
mark.
yeah, wide receivers, running backs, like I said, fairly similar as last year. You
Yeah,
lose more, you bring in DJ. Who knows what you're going to get from Deontay Johnson?
yeah, really,
But
that's
the
massive.
running back room is kind of the interesting one to me. Will Jerome Ford continue to be their RB1, even though he's been kind of so over the last year and a half, filling in for Nick Chubb?
Right.
Quinshon Judkins definitely can be a workhorse back, but like you mentioned, he does have some legal issues, and we'll see what comes down the pike from those.
Yeah. Yeah, no. We'll definitely talk about those running backs and wide receivers when we get in the fantasy space. Because of lack of injuries here, actually a very healthy team coming into the year at this point. Really,
Yeah,
the only person that's got any type of like thing going on is Judkins with his legal issues, which it's just too early to tell if a
right.
suspension is coming, when it would be, and yada yada yada. So it's really just conjecture at this point. But let's spend that time talking about the QB room. Who
Yeah.
do you think QB1's going to be week one? And, who's at week one, and who would you say finishes the year? I will give my take. I think Joe Flacco is the quarterback QB1 for week one.
Okay.
He absolutely does not finish the year because he's like freaking 55.
Okay.
And, yeah, it's just not his thing. I I think Shadur finishes the year.
Okay.
I think before, going into the draft, I probably would have said Dylan Gabriel. I
Mhm.
think they're going to give one of them the shot to finish the year. I don't think
Sure.
this is going to be a playoff team.
Agreed.
We'll talk about that and everything, but I do think one of them's going to get a shot. But man, I don't know if it's just social media or what, but they're really pumping the Shadur juice, and
Yeah.
it gets to a certain point where you got to sell tickets. And if you're a fan, I think Shadur Sanders brings a lot more ticket value than Dylan Gabriel does. So I think Joe. I mean, honestly, I don't know if it's a hot take, but I think they all get like a start at some point in the year, which
100%.
is going to be very funny to see, like the
Yep.
carousel of who's starting this week.
Yep.
It's like a college team, but yeah, I think Flacco starts and I think Shadur finishes. What say
So
you?
so I think you make a lot of great points. I don't think all four of them are on their roster week one.
That's
I,
probably fair. Yeah,
I
I
think
mean,
I think that Gabriel and Shadur will both be on the roster. I mean, you just used draft picks to pick those guys up. Kenny Pickett, you got in a trade, so it'll be interesting to see. I don't think they'll necessarily cut Pickett, but they will probably try to get a draft pick back that they would have had to use in the trade to begin with. If they end up going that route, they could ultimately just cut Joe Flacco.
right?
Um,
Yeah,
but my guess is, depending on how preseason looks, how training camp looks, Joe Flacco or Kenny Pickett, one of the two, will not be on the roster week one. Now,
yeah. I think
if
that's
they
fair.
end up cutting Joe Flacco, could they bring him back? Potentially. I wouldn't think so.
Right.
That's a boneheaded business move. Hey, you weren't good enough for us 6 weeks ago, but all of our guys are injured and suck, and
Situations change,
come
man.
on
Joey
in.
Flacco's found himself in the league every year,
Exactly.
man. So
But yeah, I think, like you mentioned, I think all 3, 4 of them will start at some point.
yeah,
But I think either Flacco or Pickett, which whoever's on the roster, like I said, I don't think either or both of them will be, but one of them will get the start week 1.
yeah. Last question here: who do you think gives them the best chance to win right now?
Ooh.
Week 1,
Um,
this roster, right now, who do you think gives them the
I
best chance to
I
win?
would probably say Flacco,
Yeah,
just
I would
knowing
too.
his history with the team, and
Yeah, but
yeah,
definitely, yeah,
I've
no,
seen too much of Kenny Pickett to say Kenny.
right, and I know he's our pick guy and H2P and all those good
Right.
things, but yeah, it's tough, man. It's tough waters out there for the Kenny P defenders. Nothing to do with his hand size, just kind of has really shit the bed with all his opportunities. So
Right.
yeah, I agree with you that Joe Flacco would not be the best long term business decision, but I truthfully think that he gives them the best chance to win. So it's an
Agreed.
interesting kind of juxtaposition.
Yeah.
All right, let's go over to that fantasy space and let's talk
Cool.
about that running back room that you alluded to there. You've got Jerome Ford, you got Judkins, you've still got Pierre Strong,
Yeah,
you've
Samson.
got Dylan Sampson. In the fantasy space, like, are you avoiding? Are you just taking like one of the rookies? Like, I don't really know if is anybody clicking the Jerome Ford button. I guess if the price is cheap enough, but he's hard to get excited about, man. He had all the opportunity in the world last year, and he just didn't really do much.
Exactly. And that's where, I mean, I haven't looked to see where either of them are really going at this point. I'm taking a look at that now. If you have that info, that'd be great. But Quinshon Judkins is RB 27 right now.
Right.
Um,
I don't even know where Samson and I think
I
he's the
don't
first one
I
going.
don't even see Jerome Ford on here.
Yeah. So assuming
So it sounds
Sam,
like Dylan Sampson's RB 54. I must have
yeah,
just skipped
so
over
free.
one somewhere. Um, but yeah, I think I would probably of the 3 of them, I would probably prefer Quinshad Judkins.
Right.
Um, but yeah, I don't know if I would necessarily feel super confident with any of them.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I'm at. I would rather pick a flyer on Samson super late or on waivers or just last round or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah,
Dude was a solid running back at Tennessee.
no doubt.
I hate the
Hard
situation
runner.
he's in right now because I don't understand why the Browns drafted him and double tap at running back. If you have Ford who's serviceable and Pierre Strong, who's also serviceable, right? Why would you kind of do this situation where you kind of muck it up with some rookies?
Right.
I think Judkins has probably the easiest path, but with the legal trouble, and I get it. He's a good running back, but I,
Yeah.
based on their college play, I mean, I was on a better team, but I'm not sure that he's a much better running back than Dylan Sampson was. I mean, that dude was really. I know you got your bias there, but as much
Well,
as
I mean, yes, but he also did that at Ole Miss too. I mean, he was
right,
the
right,
leading rusher in the SEC before he moved on
right.
up to Columbus, playing with the big boys. So,
Okay. Yeah, right.
I mean, if
Yeah, he's
I
good.
mean, and I did find Jerome Ford. He's going as RB 58. So Samson 54, Ford 58.
So free. Yeah.
Yeah, so both of those guys are free, and
Yeah.
Judkins, you'll have to pay a little bit more for him at RB 27. So he's going around guys like Pacheco and Pollard and Caleb Johnson, another AFC North guy.
Okay.
So
Yeah. Yeah. And that's
I
interesting.
could, I could, I would probably just stay away from all 3 of them, to be
Yeah.
honest
I
with you.
think that's probably the play because we don't know, what the left tackle situation is going to look like. Obviously, I don't think people are going to be fearing any of these quarterbacks too much.
Yeah,
But speaking of the passing game, wide
and
receiver
I
room.
think they're gonna have to throw the ball a lot
Yeah.
because their offense is not going to put up many points.
Yeah. They'll have to figure that out. Wide receiver room.
Yeah,
Jerry Judy, I mean,
yeah,
obviously went over, 1,200 yards last year, had a solid year.
yep.
He was really the only one to do much of anything. Are where are we at with Judy
Yep.
or Deontay Johnson? Do we think Deontay Johnson could? I mean,
Deontay Johnson has fallen so far down the latter. It's
So
not
quickly.
funny. So quickly. The
Oh
dude just
man.
turned into an absolute head case within a matter of about a year and a half. But I am a Judy fan. I do like me some Jerry Judy.
Okay.
He's a guy that, again, depending on where things fall, he would be a guy that I would be looking to
Yeah.
draft.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, like you said, is this projecting to be a pretty bad team, right? Win total 5.5, coming off a 3-win season. We don't exactly know what the quarterback play is going to look like, but they got to
Yeah.
throw it to somebody, right? And Judy did show that he can kind of have that our wide receiver one potential there.
Yep.
All right, enough talking about likely one of the worst offenses in the league there. That's because you're probably not doing a ton of fantasy, hunting there. But let's talk and move over to the betting space. 3-14 last season. Win total coming in at 5.5 this year. A little bit of plus money to the over, about plus 125, plus 115, depending where you get it, and then minus 145, minus 140 going the other way. Make playoffs around 8-1. Miss playoffs minus 1,600. To win the AFC North 32-1. To win the AFC up to 130-1. And to win the Super Bowl, you can get it at 300-1 for those Brownies to get their first Super Bowl ever. I can imagine you're not going to be taking any of those, but I will ask out of courtesy, any plays on the win total or the future for this Cleveland Browns team?
I do not, because I think, the Browns defense is going to be solid. It should be solid. So I
Right.
could see them winning 5-6 games.
Right.
I could also see them winning 2.
Correct.
So I do not have a play for those kind of things, but I have a feeling that you do.
I do, and this is we were talking about it offline before the show. This is a tough division, man, because you've got 3 teams that are set to be pretty top heavy. Both with pretty decent
3
win
winning
total
records last year. Yeah.
expectations, right? 3 almost playoff teams with the Bengals just missing there.
Yep.
And then you got the Browns, who I think you kind of hit on it. I am gonna trust a couple things. I'm going to trust the offensive line. I understand left tackle is a bit of a question mark, but they have had one of the better offensive lines. Outside of Jedrick Willis, you bring back Bitonio, Posick, Teller, Conklin, like solid Pro Bowl type guys.
Yep.
And you still got a good defense. And you have a good head coach in Kevin Stefanski, who's won Coach of the Year, I believe, twice now. So, I think that gives them a bit of a floor. I think that will allow them to be competitive. And I think if you can, they always play the division pretty damn well. And I think that they can be a tough out, especially, teams coming there on the road and potentially some bad weather where you have going against a good defense. Maybe they get opportunistic and get some turnovers there. They're playing a 4th place schedule. I will say, even though I am on their over 5.5 at plus 125, it's a bit of a brutal start. You start with Cincy at Baltimore, Green Bay at Detroit, and Minnesota. I believe that game in Minnesota game is in London or somewhere. So it's overseas somewhere.
Okay.
So and then you play at.
They're going 1-4, 0-5. You're saying to start.
I would love to just give me a win. Well, here's what I will say.
I could see their defense absolutely wrecking JJ McCarthy.
I was going to say the Vikings, and I circle Cincinnati week 1.
Yeah.
Cincinnati has been notorious to drop a game they shouldn't.
No doubt.
We'll get to Survivor eventually, but please, if you have a Survivor, don't waste your week 1 pick on Cincinnati.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'm going to go with the Cleveland Browns there. What player prop do you have for this team?
Yeah, I mentioned that I like Jerry Judy. He did this last year. He had over 1,200 receiving yards. I have him going over 1,000 yet again. Who else are they going to throw it to? I mean, you got Njoku, who should be healthier. You bring in Deontay Johnson, that for all we know, he might, be on a plane or bus or somewhere else going to a different team.
Right.
3 weeks in. So, give me Jerry Judy over 1,000 yards at plus 125.
Yeah, no, I like it. I mean, like I said, I think he's really the only one you can probably rely on outside of
I mentioned it earlier. I think they are going to have to throw the ball a lot in the second half of games.
Right. Yeah. Right. I mean, they're look at the win total. You look at all the futures, like they're projected to be behind in a lot of games. Now, I think it'll be a little bit closer, but still, I'm not calling for a 10-win season or anything like that. So, no, I like the Judy play. Then give me David Njoku. I think it's going to be Judy and Njoku in the passing
Mhm.
game. You're just going to have to go to your staples. 5+ receiving touchdowns at -120 over at DraftKings. He's hit this number in this past 2 seasons, and even the 2 seasons before, 4 and 4 touchdowns. So, I mean, he's been around this number his whole career. Only 11 games last year, he hit this number at 5 touchdowns on the season. He's a red zone threat.
Yep.
He's a dynamic player. I think he's got some value in fantasy. I'd love to know who his quarterback is, but nice thing about tight ends, they're a little bit more quarterback proof than some of these wide receivers. So
It's true.
I like Njoku to get in the end zone there 5 times at least. I think you're just getting a good number here because people are so down on the Browns.
Yeah.
Again, I
Oh
think
yeah.
Stefanski and this defense and the O line gives them a bit of a floor, and they're not going to, I don't think they're going to be, vying for the number 1 spot. I don't think they're going to be very good, but I think they can get to 6 or 7 wins and then Njoku get in the end zone for 5 times.
Yep.
So for these Cleveland Brownies here, neither of us are super high on them. I'm a bit higher. I think that they have a decent floor given their defense, offensive line, Kevin Stefanski. I'm going to go with the over 5.5. Derek is going to target Jerry Jeudy to get over 1,000 yards again this season, because who else are they throwing the ball to?
Yep.
Except in the red zone, where they get my boy Njoku 5+ touchdowns at -120 there. And that's how we see the Cleveland Browns 2025 season playing out. All right, folks, before we move on to the next team, we're going to talk about Bob Lung's fantasy football consistency guide. We spent a decent amount of time talking fantasy football with the Browns last segment there. And if you want to get a leg up on your opponents, get Bob's 10th annual edition of the Fantasy Football Consistency Guide for the 2025 NFL season. For a measly $15 on Amazon, just search 2025 Fantasy Football Consistency Guide and get you a copy today. All right. We're talking about the big dogs now. We're getting into some of the big dogs of the AFC North, and we are starting with that team in Cincinnati with Mr. Joe Cool. And I don't even think it's debatable, but the best QB wide receiver trio in the NFL.
Oh yeah.
Explosive offense, who we know what we can get out of the pass catchers, but it's the support cast and the defense that comes in with the questions for this year.
Okay.
So let's talk about these Cincinnati Bengals. Only 9-8, despite all that talent on the outside there last season, just missing the playoffs. Despite really finishing well at the down the stretch, because they always start very, very slow. So going into these losses and additions, and Derek will give us our takeaways here. Got rid of Khalil Herbert, who was very seldom used there and kind of came in late anyway.
Yep.
Tackled Trent Brown's now with the Texans. Moved on from former Buccaneer Alex Kappa. He's with the Raiders. Defensive end Sam Hubbard has retired. Sheldon Rankins is gone. Davis Gaither is now with the Cardinals. Rain Pat now with the Raiders. So 2/3 of that starting linebacking core now with other teams. And then a couple defensive guys that got some burn in the secondary there. Mike Hilton and Von Bell have moved on, currently free agents.
Mm-hmm.
Guys they brought in. Now, you may be asking yourself, this says major additions, or this is usually notable additions. What the hell is Desmond Ridder doing on my screen? Well, I
He's coming
asked
back to
myself
Cincy.
the same fucking question when he came up on my phone, and it said the Bengals, they can't sign their best player and the guy who's led the NFL in sacks last season, Trey Hendrickson. They can't sign the guy they got a first-round pick on in Shamar Stewart. But they signed Desmond Ridder? That is just a slap in the face to all football fans. That's why he's on there, just so I could bitch and moan, because it blows my mind. He's terrible. Moving on. Picked up some offensive linemen. Fairchild, coming out of, where is he? Is he from Georgia too?
Sounds right.
I think he's Georgia as well as Rutledge. I know we talked about him
Yep.
as well. But we brought in Shamar Stewart, maybe, question mark from the draft. Oren Burks coming over from the Eagles. And then Demetrius Knight starting, going to be a starting linebacker, at least slotted on the depth chart so far. So not quite as many changes as some of these other teams we're going to talk about here, but still some meaningful pieces, at least on the offensive and the defensive line, and definitely that linebacking core. So, what say you, AFC North expert? How do you see these takeaways for the Cincinnati Bengals?
I mean, overall, this is a fairly similar team than last year, assuming that they can get their defensive ends signed. Obviously,
Right.
You lose a couple guys in the safety, which is or in the secondary, which is interesting to me that they haven't really added any secondary pieces. This is one of the worst secondaries in the league last year.
Right.
But like I said, it's a fairly similar team constructively wise to last year. My biggest thing is their defense was awful.
Right.
Awful last
Bad.
year.
Very bad.
They do bring in a new defensive coordinator in Al Golden,
From Notre Dame.
from Notre Dame last year. So
Okay.
can Al Golden, revamp this defense to
It's a good pull.
be comparable, to another NFL defense, because this was like a high school defense.
Yeah, at least league average, competent, something.
Yeah, I mean, Lou Anarumo was with the Bengals for quite some time. Evidently, that didn't work out. You bring in Golden. Hopefully, if you're a Bengals fan, he brings some life to that side of the ball, because the offense has plenty of juice to keep you in games. But when you give up 40 points to the Pittsburgh Steelers last year, like, that should be a sign.
It's a red flag.
The Steelers,
It's a red flag.
The Steelers hadn't scored 40 points in years.
Right.
And they were in plenty of shootouts, and Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and T. Higgins and those guys can keep you in games, but holy smokes.
Chase had a game where he had like almost 300 yards and 2 touchdowns, and they lost.
They still lost, yeah.
So, that tells you all you really need to know.
Against the Ravens, yeah.
And let's talk about that defense, because the defense is where the question marks lie. Obviously, you have the Trey Hendrickson, which there seems to be some optimism there. I mean, just pay the dude his money. I mean, he's got the most sacks in the NFL over the past 2 seasons, led the NFL in sacks last season. Yep. Jamar Stewart's situation is a bit of an interesting one. I mean, it's on the Bengals for trying to add some new language and trying to get cute here. So I kind of get it from Jamar Stewart, although I don't think he has much options. Dude's just
and it sounds like about half of the league has this clause in rookie contracts anyways. This is just the first time that the Bengals are introducing this clause into their rookie contracts. So
and I think it's like mostly a second round pick. Like, I don't know. Might. I don't know. I don't know all that mumbo jumbo, but yeah, I mean, I guess he feels slighted, and clearly they got to figure some stuff out. So I don't even know where to factor in Jamar Stewart here. But we will talk about some of that defense and talk from the injury front.
Yeah.
BJ Hill, a guy who, came over from my Giants over in 2021 when we got, what's his name? Oh, boy. Former Alabama offensive lineman. Oh, boy. Bruce Price or something like that, or something Price. Sure. I don't know. He was freaking awful. Terrible. Another Dave Gettleman, absolute disaster class. And we got rid of BJ Hill, who's been playing really well for them. He just got a big extension. He had a little bit of a foot issue. He was in a brace or walking boot in May, but they said he's going to be good to go. He's going to start limited in training camp, just kind of, it seems precautionary. So just something to monitor. Nothing really crazy for Hill. Yep. The bigger one is Dax Hill, the cornerback, converted safety to cornerback from Michigan, slotted to play in the nickel. Now, he tore his ACL.
Yes.
Obviously a massive injury, requires surgery, about 10 to 12 months recovery time. Yep. He did at least tear it in early October. So he does have 11 months of recovery time, which is much more like what we like to see. Still difficult, but where are we at with Hill?
Yeah, it's definitely going to be difficult, especially for a piece in your secondary where you're constantly pivoting and cutting and changing direction and jumping and doing all kinds of really explosive things where, especially with ACLs, we talk about it time and time again, like it takes a good 18 months, 24 months for these guys to truly trust their knee, trust their leg again in those cases. So, for Dax Hill, he might be ready week 1. Will he look like the Dax Hill that we saw a year ago at this time. I doubt it. I think this
Right.
will be something that throughout the season he'll start to come along, assuming that he's is able to stay healthy.
Yeah, no, and I think you bring up a good point. Like, ready is a relative term, right?
Yes.
Cleared for activities is different than 100% football shape, ready to go, like at his potential, right? So I think you're correct. I think I agree that he does have a decent and good chance that he will be suited up for week 1 and be in the starting lineup.
Yep.
But I think it's going to take a couple games to knock the rust off, and then get used to cutting on a knee that last time he was on the field in a professional football game, his knee basically broke, right? I mean, he tore his
Well,
ACL. So
yep.
that's a mental thing too that a lot of athletes kind of talk about when you get into it, but doesn't really always
Yes.
come to the forefront in the kind of sports media space.
Yep.
All right, let's move on. Fantasy football takes here. Fantasy realm, much happier because you're actually probably going to be drafting some of these guys.
Right.
Look, I think Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, yes, we understand Joe Burrow, right? They're kind of top of the class there. I want to spend a little bit of time talking about that wide receiver 3 role. And I say quotations because I'm including Mike Gesicki, Andre Iziovas or whatever the fuck, and Jermaine Burton
Yeah.
in that kind of lump of the wide receiver 3 role.
Sure.
Um, who's your lead horse in this? I mean, Gesicki had the yards, but Osavas had 6 touchdowns last year. Burton seems to have the potential, but he's being a knucklehead and being late and getting benched and suspended
Right.
and stuff. Like, so where are you at with this? I mean, it's kind of interesting. You take the old vet who's gonna be on the field because he's the tight end. Do you take the guy who's been productive that nobody knows how to even say his name, or do you take the guy from Alabama who had a lot of potential coming out of the draft?
Until I know anything more about Burton, I'm taking Mike Gesicki because you mentioned it. He's gonna be on the field. He is their
Right.
tight end one, and for all intents and purposes, all 3 of these guys you're getting for free. I think Gesicki's like tight end 26 or something like that.
Jeez.
So, I mean, all 3 of these guys should be available.
Cheap.
In the last few rounds of your draft, if not picking them up on waivers. But yeah, I would probably put my money on Mike Gesicki over the other 2, just because he was, his first season in Cincinnati was last year. Iosivas had been there he's been there for a couple of years.
Right.
It'll be interesting to see if Burton can come along because, like you said, he has a lot of talent. He could be an absolute animal of a wide receiver 3.
Yeah.
It just didn't happen last
Right.
year. And
Right.
Gesicki, like you said, did have the most yards and targets of those 3 last year.
Yeah. No, yeah, I think no notes. I exactly agree with you. Mike Gesicki's definitely going to be on the field. Osavas and Burton are going to be fighting for each other's spot. So, maybe one wins or maybe they switch halfway. It's a bit of a gamble.
Yep.
Obviously, I could see Burton going super late because of that potential. I don't think anyone's drafting Osavas. So if you're on that team, you might as well just wait for waivers and just pick them up for free or just the last round or whatever. But it's an interesting debate. I do like that kind of. I mean, it's a really good offense. So they're gonna look like. I mean, look, Osavas walked
They're
himself.
gonna come up with some numbers. It'll just depend on who and when and where.
Right, exactly. All right, and then I just want to note again, if you want more of our fantasy football takes on the IDP Plus channel, we released all of our rankings, redraft, fantasy, went very in depth into the fantasy realm. But Chase Brown and T. Higgins, both guys that we liked and could be set up for a nice breakout year. So,
For sure.
like we mentioned, not going to get super into it again, but just hey, 2 guys that we'll kind of double tap as we did. All right, let's get into the betting space. Again, coming off a 9-8 season. Win total, 9.5, a little bit of juice to the over there. Obviously 10.5, catching 7+ money. Over rounds, it's pretty different. I mean, FanDuel's got it at -120. DK's got it at -150. So, obviously if you're higher on them, you know where to go. You go FanDuel, and if you're lower on them, go ahead and go over to DraftKings. You can get +125 on the under 9.5 there. Make playoffs around -150. Miss playoffs around +130. To win the AFC North, about plus 250. AFC, anywhere from 11 to 1 to plus 850. And then to win the Super Bowl, around 20 to 22 to 1. All right. Where are we at with this team for you? Any futures, any win total, anything like that?
I'm not taking any of the win total related stuff, playoff stuff, because I see this team again kind of similar to last year coming into the season. Like they could go absolutely bonkers and win 12, 13 games.
Well,
They could also, finish around 500. So I'm gonna skip off of those things, but this team or this division is top heavy, and
right.
so just looking back over the years, my Pittsburgh Steelers and the Bengals have had some battles over the years, and it seems like one wins and then the other one wins, and then
Right.
it just switches back and forth. So I went the series route and said that Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, obviously they meet up twice a year. They'll go
Right.
1-1 at plus 130.
Okay, splitting the series there. I like it. Yeah. No, I agree. I'm not on a win total or future because, I as much as I want to believe in Joe Burrow and I think he's
Yep.
fucking awesome and Chase and Higgins and,
Oh yeah.
Brown, I'm a staunch believer in football starts up front on both sides of the ball. It starts on the offensive line, it starts on the defensive line. They did nothing to address the offensive line.
Correct.
And they didn't, they're potentially going to be without two of their better players on the defensive line. So, they brought in Fairchild. We'll see what he looks like in the interior. But I'm not convinced on their offensive line, and I'm not convinced on their defensive line. So
Yep.
that's kind of where I'm at there. Obviously, they're going to put up points in fantasy. You want to be all over this team.
Yep.
But part of that is because their defense is a little bit shaky. So
Right.
no
Yep.
win total future for me. But
Okay.
I am going to be on three guys in their player prop, and we'll start with Mr. Chase Brown over 875.5 rushing yards at minus 110. He did this. He went for 990, almost 1,000 yards last season. Yes, he played in 16 games, but he was not the RB1 the whole season. I really came in after like week 4 or 5 when he started
Yeah.
to get more touches and Zach Moss got hurt and blah, blah, blah. So, this number makes no sense to me. He's got, really little competition behind him. Zach Moss is again back, but they made the move to Chase Brown over Zach Moss. Like he is
Yep.
the RB1 this season. I don't think Zach Moss is really going to be taking away a lot of touches. Moss he's coming off a neck injury, which you never want to see for a running back anyway. So
Right.
I love Chase Brown over 875.5 rush yards at minus 110 over at DraftKings. I just think smash play. I think he's in a great position. You cannot load the box against this offense, so he's going to have some holes, and I think he's going to take advantage again this season.
I'll co-sign that one.
What do you got? Okay, yeah.
So
Let's go ahead with your next one.
Let's talk wide receivers a little bit. So Jamar Chase gets all the love. He's our wide receiver one in fantasy rankings and all of those kind of things. I'm going to shift over to T. Higgins, who had a pretty good year last year, getting 10 touchdowns. I think he's going to have another really good year and go over 7.5 at minus 110. I think, Chase got the Triple Crown last year. I think the two of them both elevated their games last year. I do think it kind of evens out a little bit more. And T. Higgins kind of is that red zone threat because he's a little bit bigger type of wide receiver.
Yeah, I'm gonna piggyback off you, and I didn't go the touchdowns route, but I went T. Higgins 1,000 receiving yards at plus 150 or plus 115 over at Bet365 there. He had 911 in just 12 games last year. I think that things may swing a little bit. He's a wide receiver one. He's when he stays healthy, he hits this number pretty consistently. And he just got paid, and I think that all this is going to take is 14 games, and I think he's going to be there. Again, we just talked about it. Joe Burrow is awesome. Chase is awesome. You can't double team them both. You're probably going to double team Chase and kind of have to live with what T. Higgins does to you, which could be a lot of damage. Their defense kind of stinks, so they're going to need to score points. Even if not, they're going to throw the ball 50 times regardless.
Well, and going off that, Joe Burrow threw for 43 touchdowns last year. I think he's going to basically have a repeat season. So I did take Burrow over 40 passing touchdowns at plus 285. Like you mentioned, I think this team's just going to have to throw the ball a shit ton to Higgins and Chase and
they're really good at it. Like,
and they're really good at it.
it's not
They're
like
going
the
to put
Browns
points up.
situation where like it's a desperation thing. Like, it's really hard to stop Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and T. Higgins 3 downs. Like, they have 3 shots to pick up 10 yards. That's really difficult to do for anybody. So yeah, no, I agree. Barring, any really injury, I think that it's hard not to love this offense.
Yep.
All right, last play I'm going to give out here is my boy Trey Hendrickson. I'll put some respect on your name. I talked about it. I mean, the dude's had 17 and a half sacks 2 seasons in a row. 2 years ago it wasn't good enough because I believe it was Watt that had like 19 and it went crazy.
21.
Right? Well, Watt just got paid. He's fat and happy. Right? Trey Hendrickson's having to work like a dog, and whether he gets paid or he gets slighted, I think he's going to come up with a chip on his shoulder. So give me Trey Hendrickson to have the most sacks yet again this season, as he did last season, at 10-1. I mean, he led the league last year. He has the most sacks in the past 2 seasons. Like, they don't really have any other pass rushers. Like, who knows if Stewart's going to line up? Size a fun piece, but like, I just think the price is crazy. You're giving me 10-1 on the guy who I think has the best shot to do this, right?
Yep.
Because he also doesn't have the name of Myles Garrett and TJ Watt, right? Like,
Correct.
You're definitely double teaming, and all your attention is on Watt and Garrett and guys like that, right? Crosby and stuff. Henderson, for whatever reason, just doesn't get that respect.
Yep.
And I mean, if that's fine, I guess, in the betting markets, because I'm going to take advantage of it. And so give me him to have the most sacks in the NFL at 10-1 over on DraftKings there.
Good deal.
All right. So these Cincinnati Bengals, we'll see if they're going to rule the jungle this season. Derek and I are staying away from the win totals and futures. We love the offense, but the O-line, the defense, a lot of question marks there, and we don't think they did enough to kind of own that vote of confidence. However, he thinks they're going to split the series with his Steelers and go 1-1 for a nice plus 130. Both big fans of T. Higgins having a nice breakout year, which means Mr. Joe Cool is also going to have a nice year. And then Trey Hendrickson, stop disrespecting the man. He's going to get sacks, and he's going to make us cash there. Nice 10-1 for him to lead the NFL in sacks. All right, before we move on, let me tell you about what we got going on over at idpplus.com. Look, folks, if you are a football junkie like our peoples like us, then you want to check out idpplus.com. We took football 24/7, 365. If you're a defensive junkie, definitely head on over to IDP Plus. There's not many people welcoming in the defensive nerds. We gladly do it, but whether it's betting, offense, we've got a subscribers-only Discord, and we got different levels of subscription where we have subscriber-only content to ensure you have a leg up in your fantasy league. So go ahead and check out idpplus.com today. These Baltimore Ravens, seemingly the kings of the regular season, coming off a 12-5 season, as my co-host looks on in disgust for the team that he so eloquently and lovingly refers to as the Ratbirds. We're talking about these Baltimore Ravens. Look, 12-5 on 12-5 coming off the 2024 season where they won the AFC North. Looked like a juggernaut, and unfortunately, they fell short to the Buffalo Bills there in the playoffs, which kind of is a little bit of a broken record there for Baltimore Ravens fans, looking so good and falling short in the playoffs in those key moments. They lost a lot and they gained some. So we'll go through them. It's a little bit of a mixed bag of the players, the loss, and personnel. And then Derek's going to kind of decipher all this after I'm done here. All right, so Deontay Johnson gone, which I think he had one catch and one very big slip that would have been like a 50-yard catch. That's about his time in Baltimore. Nelson Aguilar, who found his hands after losing them in Philadelphia, is no longer on the team. Patrick McCarry, a really good interior lineman for them for a while. He's
Yep.
now with Jacksonville with a couple of those younger draft picks stepping up there. Michael Pierce, big boy, is now retired, as well as Brent Urban is a free agent. Special team great Chris Board is now with my New York Giants. Cornerbacks Arthur Millette, Brandon Stevens, and Tre'Davious White are now gone. Stevens, obviously, really the most impactful there. White really couldn't find himself after the ACL and Achilles tear. Now he's back in Buffalo to try it. But Stevens was a starter for the team now with the Jets. And then Marcus Williams, who didn't really work out at safety, was part of the problem of that secondary early half of the year. And Justin Tucker, we're just going to move on and not touch that one. Don't want him to get too excited on us.
That's right.
All right, we're going to go to the additions here. Cooper Rush comes to town from Dallas. Nuke DeAndre Hopkins is in the building, which is just interesting. He's a bit old, but hey, I mean, he's still big and got a really nice catch radius.
Yep.
Joe Noteboom comes in to be the swing tackle. They drafted Mike Green, who's got some off the field issues, but he's a good player, so we'll see how that works. Brought in some older cornerbacks who were very good at one time, but can they stay healthy? And Jair Alexander and Chidobe Awuzie. And then the safety out of Georgia, Malachi Starks, who's going to have to step up pretty much right away with the major injury that we'll talk about here in a little bit to that safety position. So put your unbiased hat on and tell me what you think of this offseason from the Baltimore Ravens.
Yeah, the Ravens just, however they keep doing it, I don't know, but they just keep bringing in guys at key positions that are just absolute studs. And I think in this offseason, they made some incredible moves in their secondary, bringing in Jair Alexander, one of the best cornerbacks in the league, when he's on the field, drafting Malachi Starks, who, again, kind of slipped in the draft.
Right.
He's an absolute stud coming out of Georgia. But other than that, I mean, overall, this is just kind of rinse and repeat for the Ravens. I think, they have had Zay Flowers and Bateman over the last couple of years. They've developed into a nice pair there. But, they still don't have like that bona fide absolute stud wide receiver like we were just talking about with the Bengals.
Right.
But at the same time, they don't need them. This is Lamar and King Henry's team at this point. It'll be interesting to see, will Derrick Henry continue to be the absolute stud that he is as he's moving through his 30s with grace and, just coming in like a wrecking ball.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I agree. I mean, I think they did well. I think, the secondary was a bit of an issue, although they cleaned it up at the end of the year.
Yeah.
So they addressed that. I think Mike Green, if he works out, could be a nice pass rusher. And We'll see what DeAndre Hopkins can bring. I mean, even if it's just some size or just some ability to make sure.
Yeah, I think that's a similar move to a couple years ago when they brought in OBJ. To be honest with you, just an older veteran wide receiver that is probably past his prime, but he can still come in on key third downs or something and get some good key yards.
Yeah, I mean, he's still got great hands. I mean, the separation obviously was never really his thing. So, possession, even if he can get some of those key third downs, that would absolutely be great. Now let's talk their injuries, because they do have a couple, more than really any other team, and it's not a ton, but the big one, safety Adarius Washington, who was really key in bringing in part, for that secondary that was super beat up.
Yep.
He tore his Achilles in May. So pretty much safe to say, I mean, that's like a 10 to 12 month recovery. Yeah, I mean, I know they're keeping the door slightly cracked for a Super Bowl run or whatever, but he's probably done. You're almost definitely not seeing him this season, because even if he does make it back by some way, somehow, I mean, you're not going to play a guy who hasn't played all year like in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, right? and they brought in some key, secondary help to begin with. I mean,
Malachi Starks is going to have to step up. He's going to have to play day one.
No doubt. And Jair Alexander, he's going to be one of their outside corners. But Chidobe Awuzie, not too long ago was a pretty damn good corner himself. So
Absolutely.
he'll be kind of taking that first guy off the bench spot most likely.
Yeah, and a Duzier, talking about him, just a minor ankle injury picked up
Yep.
in training, picked up in June in a practice. He should be good to go for training camp. Just one to
Yep.
monitor. But Jair Alexander, we'll spend a little time talking about him because availability has been his biggest thing. I mean, I think out of 64 games or 68 games, he's only played 34. Like he's only played basically 50% of the time the past like
Right.
4 years, and that's the reason he was released from the Packers. It just didn't
Yep.
work out. He had a PCL strain that he tried to come back from and ultimately kind of got shut down at the end of the year, and he had arthroscopic surgery.
Yep.
So, it was a little bit of like he said, she said. If you ask Jair Alexander, he said he had a PCL tear, but the surgery apparently was not reconstructive. It was only an arthroscopic, which just means like they
Right.
cleaned some stuff up. They didn't repair his PCL, so that means it wasn't fully torn.
Correct.
So, with it just being an arthroscopic surgery, more of a 2 to 4 month variety, not anything super long. That was in January, so he has 9 months to recover. So, are you concerned about that injury or that surgery coming into this year?
No, I'm not terribly concerned with the surgery itself. I think timeline wise, he's got plenty of time. Jair Alexander, he's just a funny, kind of a funky dude,
Right.
just as a whole. I'm more concerned with just him and his headspace,
Yeah.
to be
Yeah,
honest.
that's fair. I mean,
But yeah,
fair.
injury wise, he should be fine.
Yeah, coming into the year, he should be healthy, but yeah, he's got an extensive injury history. We talked about it, and like you
Yes.
said, whether it's
Yes.
been some uh mentally escalated things or whatever it may be, some of it is definitely real, and some of it, who knows, maybe being a diva. It's a concern. The number one predictor for an injury is a previous injury of that body part. So
Yep.
he's had quite a few. So this is one of those where if he stays healthy, I think it's a smash signing. I think it could be one of those steals of the offseason.
Yes.
And if he continues to be unavailable, then thank goodness they
It
picked up
doesn't matter.
Chidobe Awuzie, right?
Yeah.
So,
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, overall, like we've been talking about, I think it's mostly rinse and repeat. That they're gonna have a pretty damn good defense. Their offense is going to be able to move the ball. It'll be interesting to see if their O line can hold up as well as it did last year
right.
as a whole. But what are your thoughts as far as the big boys up front? I know
Yeah,
you like talking them.
yeah, I just, it kind of grew to the point of like they're always going to have a really good offensive line. Last year, though, I mean, at least early on, they were not the best unit.
Struggled a little bit. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I think back to that Chiefs game week 1 for sure, but Lamar took a little more sacks than he did, and it just didn't look quite as dominant. So I think that was really one of those calling cards for them the past couple of years. So now as these young bucks, Linderbaum, Voorhees, Fiale, get a little bit older here, I'm interested to see if they take that step forward. Ron Stanley, when he's healthy, is one of the best left tackles in the game. You brought in
Sure.
Noteboom to kind of be that swing, so it still projects to be a good offensive line. But they really they need them. I mean, that's how they play. They play nasty. They play run first offense, and they need that O line to step up. And it's just such a huge part of that team. So I'm interested to see it. But I do, like you mentioned, that they have a great secondary on paper.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that plays out. All right, going to the fantasy space, we will kind of hit on some things here. Lamar comes in at our QB2. Again, if you want to check out the rankings over on IDP Plus, that YouTube over there, we did a bunch of fantasy rankings and redraft fantasy or dynasty, excuse me. So
Yep.
check those out. But I mean, it's Lamar. His rushing, his yards, if not his touchdowns, just you can't get him past 2. He's
Yep.
also, I mean, what did he throw for, like 40 touchdowns and 4 interceptions? I mean, very kind of sneakily, just because we think of Lamar, we think of explosive runs. I mean,
Right.
4,000 yards and 41 touchdowns and 4 interceptions is pretty damn good. So the guy's a scoring machine there. And then Derrick Henry, let's talk about him a little bit because I think we're a little bit higher than market on him. So, he comes in at our RB4 for the redraft this year.
Yeah.
Why are we so high on Henry compared to maybe some of the other people out there?
Yeah, I mean, because he's King Henry. He just does it over and over and over again. If he's on the field, like, hand the ball to him 25 times, he's going to
Yeah.
pick up 110 yards and 2
Yep.
touchdowns. You know, he's not going to be the receiving threat that most running backs in the league at this point are. But he's just your prototypical ground and pound, hand it to him, 30 times, and he's just going to pick up yards. Sometimes it comes from a 70-yard burst, and sometimes it comes 2 and 3 at a time. But yeah.
He doesn't
He didn't show a sign of slowing down last year.
He doesn't need to come out of the backfield anyway. That's what my boy Justice Hill's there for, to catch his all.
There you go.
Anyway, but yeah, no, I want to remind people, just because I feel like they need this reminder. 17 games, 325 carries, 1,921 yards, 16 touchdowns, 113 yards per game.
Yep.
Yeah, there's not much else to say. I mean, he's in a really good situation. He's got a quarterback that's a threat with his legs. He's got one of the better offensive lines, and he's got a coach who's going to run the ball 20 plus times.
Yep.
Don't overcomplicate it. All right, Mark Andrews, though, versus Isaiah Likely. Likely had a little bit more in the receiving yards department, but Mark Andrews, man, especially late in the year, where I love him is in the red zone, and he had 11 touchdowns despite really slow start to the season. Where are you at with Andrews versus Likely? I don't know how much of a debate there is at this point, with what we saw last year, but where are you at? Are you an Andrews or a Likely camp?
I'm an Andrews fan.
Yeah.
I think he's just old, reliable. He came onto to the season really, really slowly last year, coming off of a pretty sizable injury the year before.
And a car accident that they didn't tell us about.
Exactly, yeah. So, I mean, it's just one of those things that it took him a little bit to get back into football shape and back in the swing of things with Lamar. But Mark Andrews is the guy. I think everybody jumped on Isaiah Likely's train after that Kansas City game where he absolutely went bonkers, and then he really didn't do a whole lot.
Not much at all. No. Yeah. The other thing I'll say is, look, if your quarterback's going to throw for 40 touchdowns and you're the number one red zone threat, I'm going to be high on you. And that's why I'm high on Mark Andrews. So let's go to the betting space here. These Baltimore Ravens, 12-5 last season. Win total sitting at 11.5. Some juice to the over, around minus 115, minus 125, depending on where you get it. To make the playoffs, minus 500 to minus 550. To miss the playoffs, plus 390 to plus 360. To win the AFC North again this season, minus 150, minus 145. To win the AFC, plus 340. And then Super Bowl, plus 650, plus 600, and plus 700. I think they're the odds-on favorites. I think them and the Bills right now, and most of the sports books, to win it all. Again, team that always performs in the regular season.
Yep.
Playoffs, just a different story. So where are you at? I'm going to imagine your fandom won't let you take a future here, but I got to ask, any futures or win total plays here?
You're absolutely right. I am not taking any win totals, make playoffs, miss playoffs. I think, when it comes to the playoff stuff, the price is just too steep for me, because I do think they make the playoffs, but minus 550, holy smokes, good luck.
Yeah.
I clicked on the under 11.5, but I just couldn't bring myself to it.
Regular season kings, man. Yeah, they win 12 or more. That's just what they do. So, but what do you got for us?
Let's talk a little bit about just the Ravens as a whole. They're a ground and pound team, whether it's Lamar, whether it's King Henry, whether it's Justice Hill.
Right.
They love to run the ball, and I think I placed this exact same bet last year. It fell through by one game.
Was it one game? Oh, it was against your Steelers too, right?
It was against the Steelers. The Ravens to score one rushing touchdown in every regular season game, all 17 at 10-1. Like I said, it was one game off last year. I'm running it back. I think that they're able to get in the end zone on the ground at least once every game. Going back to the Pittsburgh-Baltimore thing, it's just one of those things where the Steelers play Baltimore really, really, really well.
Yeah.
Last year, towards the end of the season, they had an absolutely horrific 3 or 4 game stretch with Baltimore, I think ending that stretch and lost that one. So I think they do split the series yet again at 1-1 at plus 200.
Yeah.
And then we talked about Mark Andrews and how he's a touchdown machine. He's Ben Lamar's kind of go-to guy, especially once they get down inside the red zone. So I took 5+ touchdowns at plus 125.
Yeah. No, and
I will say that this is where you got to check around a little bit because I almost took the 6.5. That was at, I think, minus 110. So you got to check around a little bit.
yeah. No, I was just
Before,
going to talk about that. This
yeah,
is, and you look, if you're watching this right now, or when this is released tomorrow, we're going to put this out. You get a bonus if you haven't seen it already. I'm not going to post it. I'm gonna gatekeep it from the sport book. But yeah, no, DraftKings right now, they have Mark Andrews touchdown prop at 6.5, minus 110 each way. They, in a separate market, have 5+ receiving touchdowns at plus 125 and
yeah,
10+ receiving touchdowns at plus 6-1 or plus 600. Excuse me. Those are wrong. Those are typos. Like,
yes,
take the 5 receiving touchdowns at plus 125 right now.
yes.
I saw that and I immediately said, "Wow, that is a mistake." So bet that now. If go look now, make sure you take the opportunity because
Uh-huh.
I'm telling you now, that is not correct.
Yep.
That was a mistake by some intern who is probably going to get fired at some point. But we're not going to raise a giant stink on social media. So if you're watching this, congratulations. Hopefully it's still there for you. But take Mark Andrews 5 receiving touchdowns plus 125. And then take
I would go ahead and take the 6.5 too, but I mean,
I mean, but
I think it gets. I think it gets to 7. I'm not. I shouldn't say I would take it. I
right.
think it gets to 7.
Well, I'm playing 10 plus at 6-1. I think
There
he
you
gets
go.
to I think he gets there. I mean, he had 11 in a season where he started super flat. So
Yep.
yeah, I love Mark Andrews touchdowns there. Again, bet that now. And then you talked about the ground and pound team. It's the ground and pound king, Derrick Henry, over 1,375.5 rushing yards, minus 110 over at DraftKings. I mean, I already said it. I mean, the dude's a beast. He's in a
Yep.
very, very good situation.
Yep.
That can build in for some regression. He almost he had 1,900 yards, so he can have 500 yards less than he did last year and still go to this over. So I just think that, especially fourth quarter, second half, Derrick Henry, it's the last thing any defender wants to see, him coming downhill. Just ask our friend who we're going to talk about in a second in Minka Fitzpatrick, how that worked out for him. So, yeah, the Baltimore Ravens, the kings of the regular season. We are going to be all over Mark Andrews. Bet that now for his touchdown prop. Derek thinks that they're going to split the series with the Steelers at 2-1, which they typically do. He also likes him to score a rushing touchdown in every single game. 10-1, one game away last season. And then do not fade King Henry, not on our watch. Take his over on the rushing there. And that is how we see the Ravens 2025 season playing out. All right, we're heading on to our last and final team. Some say saving the best for last here. But before we do that, we got to tell you about the Fantasy Football Expo, because the 2025 Fantasy Football Expo tickets are on sale now, and they're going like hotcakes. Look, go to the fantasyfootballexpo.com. Less than a month away, a couple weeks away, August 8th to the 10th in beautiful Canton, Ohio. They got new fan packages. They got all these things you want to check out. Join us and other well-known content creators at the NFL Hall of Fame Village. We're talking fantasy throughout this whole episode, and we can't do it without talking about Fast Draft Fantasy. That's right, folks. If you want to draft fast, head on over to Fast Draft Fantasy. You know the guys you want to pick, so head on over. 20 seconds on the clock. Get your picks in. We'll make the deal sweeter. Use promo code plus Degen Doc. Download the app, deposit $50, and boom, we just gifted you a free $50. All right. It's time for your 2025 Pittsburgh Steelers. Here we go. The Steelers are maybe going to the Super Bowl. We will see. I'm not going to come in with the optimism that I'm sure my co-host is going to have. Let's tee it up for you. Coming off a 10-7 year, again, Mike Tomlin above 500. But again, Mike Tomlin disappointing in the playoffs, getting blown out on the road to division rival Baltimore Ravens. Let's talk about what changed, because typically they're good enough, so there's not a lot of change. But this season is different. They understand that just merely making the playoffs to get bounced in the first round is no longer acceptable in Steel City. They like their championships. And if the Penguins and Crosby are moving on to a new generation, they need to see something out of their Steelers there. The Yinzers are not going to take too much more of this mediocrity. So here we are. This is where we line up with giant losses and additions. So I'm going to have the easy job of just naming them off, and then Derek will have the much tougher job of telling us what it all means. So with these losses, the quarterback room gone. Now going to be their own respective starting quarterbacks. One with my New York Football Giants in Dangerous, and one just across town in the Jets with Justin Fields. You got Najee, if he can hold on to his eyeballs in Los Angeles. And you've got George Pickens getting traded to Dallas. Mike Williams retiring. Longtime offensive tackle Dan Moore has now moved on to the Titans, excuse me. Larry Ogunjobi, right before he got hit with the 6-game suspension for PEDs, is now with the Buffalo Bills. Landon Roberts, who gave us one of the best plays that we're never going to remember when he jumped over the goal line and stopped Dallas from scoring on the inch goal.
Right.
Third and goal, just to let them score on 4th and goal.
Yeah.
And then the secondary, Dante Jackson gone, Minka Fitzpatrick is going back to Miami, and then Demonte KZ is now with the Browns. So changes in the secondary and on the offensive and defensive line. A lot of changes, but we have a lot of additions. You bring in 41-year-old Aaron Rodgers. Mason Rudolph is back in the town that actually appreciates him. Kenneth Gainwell coming over from Philly. The rookie Caleb Johnson out of Iowa, who a lot of people really like, and myself included. DK Metcalf is the big addition coming over from Seattle. He is going to be hopefully George Pickens without the headache. You've got a bunch of guys who are going to make the roster but probably not do anything in Scotty Miller and Robert Woods. Jonnu Smith coming over in the trade from Minka, as well as obviously Jalen Ramsey. I think two guys that are going to definitely make an impact this year. First-round draft pick Derek Harmon, come out of Oregon. He needs to step up because that rush defense, especially going up against Baltimore, needs to improve. Your probably favorite pick, Jack Sawyer, coming out of the Ohio State. And then Brandon Eccles and Darius Slay, a couple quality guys in the back end, as well as Deshaun Elliott and Juan Thornhill. So I need to catch my breath. So why don't you tell the fine folks what all this change means in the city of Pittsburgh?
It means that they'll probably go 10-7 and lose in the wild card.
You can't. You're the Pittsburgh guy. You got to bring a little juice and enthusiasm.
No, I am. I'm drinking the juice a little bit. I'm drinking the Kool-Aid. But ultimately, it's just kind of wait and see. Just, with the amount of changes that they made this offseason, I have no idea what the heck's going to go on. They could win 12 games. They have to win 9 games. Mike Tomlin's still there.
Right.
But, you have a 42-year-old Aaron Rodgers. This isn't 2019 Aaron Rodgers.
Right. He's just 41, or is he going to turn
41, whatever. But we haven't seen Aaron Rodgers, the bad man that he is, according to Stephen A., for a number of years now. At the same time, you bring in a bona fide wide receiver one, DK Metcalf. You trade away George Pickens, so you still don't have a wide receiver two that they've been trying to find for the last 2 off seasons. I think you do get an upgrade in the skill positions by bringing in Jonnu Smith, who you mentioned. I think he is kind of another puzzle piece that Artie Smith can use.
Right.
He's reconnecting with Jonnu Smith, his cousin, for I think the 3rd team now. Offensive line wise, they did lose a couple of starters from last year. or did they? Because
They weren't
last
very
year,
good.
Daniels was injured quite a bit. So Mason McCormick, who was a rookie, filled in nicely for him. He'll fill in that starting spot. And then Dan Moore, finally, they got rid of him, shipped him down to Tennessee. And their first round pick last year, Troy Faltanu, should fill in nicely at right tackle, leaving Broderick Jones to switch back to the left side where he should be playing
Yeah.
all along. Defensively, obviously the big acquisition was Jalen Ramsey just a few weeks ago in that trade for Minkah Fitzpatrick. And we talked about it a couple weeks ago, but I'm not necessarily as excited for that as I was their first round pick this year in Derek Harmon,
Yeah.
as well as bringing in my guy Jack Sawyer from the Ohio State University. I mean, he's definitely now known for his strip sack touchdown against Texas in the
Yeah.
semifinal
To
playoff
cover
game.
the damn spread in that game. Yep.
Yeah, but I mean, for the majority of the time that he was a Buckeye, he was a run defender, to be
Good.
honest with you.
Yeah.
And, that's where it absolutely killed them in the back half of the season. They couldn't stop anybody from
Right.
rushing the football. So bringing in Derek Harmon alongside Cam Hayward and Keanu Benton, bringing in a guy like Jack Sawyer to kind of spell Alex Highsmith or TJ or one of those guys up front from time to time should give them a little bit more flexibility and a little bit more depth in that front seven. But overall, their defense is gonna be one of the best units in the league. Is assuming guys stay healthy.
Yeah.
Offensively, again, rinse and repeat. We'll see.
Yeah. Now, as someone who, went to school in Pittsburgh, has a wife who's a Pittsburgh
Got a
Steelers
terrible
fan.
towel above your dome.
Yes, I am a supporter. I'm a Giants fan at heart. Absolutely. I'm still a Giants fan, but we do root for the Pittsburgh Steelers in this household. I watched a lot of them the past couple of years. And look, it's the run defense and it's the consistency on offense.
Yes.
That's the thing. Those are the two biggest questions coming in the year, like they typically do. They made some moves. I like Harmon and I like Sawyer.
Some.
They're two.
They made like 76 moves.
And specific to this, yes, you're correct. But I don't know if two rookies is going to be enough to on the run defense, but it is a step in the right direction. And then the offense, I still think the wide receiver 2 position is a whole.
Definitely.
Arthur Smith is likely going to roll out 3 tight ends because he probably have one of the best tight end rooms in the league. And DK Metcalf and Caleb Johnson or Jalen Warren or whatever. It's going to be interesting, but he's going to have to be creative to create an offense that is consistent and effective. Too many wasted first downs where they're in third and long, and that's just not the way this team can be effective.
And honestly, I think defensively, they went into this offseason trying to win against the Bengals and the Ravens. They brought in a lot of corner help.
Right.
In Darius Slay and Jalen Ramsey. They tried to bring in some dudes up front.
Right.
Offensively, they're still trying to play smash mouth 70s Pittsburgh Steelers football. Like you said, with 3 tight ends and 2 or 3 running backs.
Yeah. No, and that's, we'll see. I mean, you do got to worry about those brownies there. What do we bring in for the Browns there? But we'll talk about health because all 22 starters are healthy. You do have a 41-year-old quarterback. So, always a bit of an interesting there. But, hey, Tom Brady did it. So maybe A-Rod himself can reignite his fountain of youth there. Lord knows he's taken enough concoctions to trying it. So fantasy takeaway wise, I think there's really 2 topics I just want to touch on here. Jonnu Smith, I like him. I was very high on him. Thought he was going to have a really good year in Miami.
Yep.
Now he comes to this offense where you got Pat Freiermuth there. There's still no wide receivers too. Like, I'm very intrigued to see. He has the capability. I mean, he just was the second leading receiver on the Miami Dolphins, which is pretty hard to do, and had 8 touchdowns. Like, he has the capability to be a very good asset. He has familiarity with Arthur Smith. Are we going to see the creativity to really let his attributes shine? I hope so.
I agree.
I think it's now after the trade, his ADP plummeted. People were really scared off. I think it swung too much in that direction.
Mm-hmm.
So I will still be clicking the button, but there is a lot more questions than what there was a couple months ago when I knew he was on Miami.
Yes.
So, Jonnu Smith, I think, is a very intriguing piece, but I think for anyone to be confident in what that's going to look like, I think is really just grasping for straws.
Yep.
What say you? Are you on board there?
Yeah, no, I would agree with your take there. I think, Jonnu Smith was used primarily as a wide receiver in that Miami offense. He didn't line up in line as a blocking tight end at nearly as many
Right.
or as often as he went out wide. So I think, when you talk about their tight end room with Pat Freiermuth and Darnell Washington and Jonnu Smith, you kind of have a mixed bag where Darnell Washington is a massive tight end who's a great blocker,
Yep.
has decent hands.
Right.
On the other hand, you have Jonnu Smith, great wide receiver, tight end,
Right.
decent
Yeah.
blocker, and then you have Pat Freiermuth can kind of do both.
Right.
So I think, from a fantasy perspective, I would still lean more towards Jonnu Smith and Pat Freiermuth, but I could definitely see them splitting.
Right.
Splitting
They're gonna.
targets from time to
I
time.
mean, by default, they're gonna eat into each other, but I do think like they're both gonna be on the field majority of the game.
Agreed.
Right. So,
Agreed.
all right, and then I have to ask you, the running back room.
Yeah.
I like Jaylen Warren. I think Jaylen Warren runs hard. I think he's easy guy to root for. But I love Caleb Johnson coming out of Iowa. I mean, this dude was an absolute. He was the Iowa Hawkeyes offense last year. I mean, he's an absolute stud. Where are you at here? Who do you think starts the year RB1? Who do you think ends the year RB1?
I wouldn't be surprised if it starts out kind of as a running back by committee, Jaylen Warren, Caleb Johnson, kind of going back and forth. Gainwell might get a few touches here and there.
Sure.
But I really think that Caleb Johnson will eventually be their RB1.
I think he's
similarly to Najee last year, to be honest with you. I mean,
right.
A couple years ago, Warren really had a good year alongside Najee. Last year, it was the Najee Harris show for the most part. And I think it'll look fairly similar this year. I mean, Artie Smith had his best years with Derrick Henry, who's a big, strong running back that's just going to, stick his nose into every single line possible. I think Caleb Johnson's definitely more that type of running back than Jaylen Warren is. Jaylen Warren is fairly explosive. He definitely can make some guys miss, but he's not necessarily going to move the pile.
Yeah, I think you follow Arthur Smith throughout his career, and he's going to go for the bruiser 3-down back guy every time. Yeah. I mean, there was a reason why Bijan Robinson, fantasy people were like up in arms because he made Tyler Algier a thing because he's the bowling ball, right? Yes. I mean, yeah, Bijan. We can all tell Bijan Robinson's a better running back, but he's the bowling ball, so he got carries in Arthur Smith offense, and I think Caleb Johnson is that prototypical 3-down running back that he's ultimately looking for. Correct. So I like
and the last time the Steelers drafted a running back from the Big Ten, he did okay in Pittsburgh.
Is that the bus?
Nope, that'd be Le'Veon Bell.
Michigan
State. Michigan State.
Yes. I was like, oh man, this is gonna throw my tree.
The bus went to Notre Dame.
About
good try.
Isn't he a boxer now? So I was thinking of Le'Veon Bell. When I think about him, I think of him, taking an awful deal and less money with the Jets and ruining his career.
Right.
But let's get on over to the betting space here and wrap this Pittsburgh Steelers preview up. 10-7 last year, above 500 because it's Mike Tomlin. Win total, they're doubting him again. 8.5 wins, a little bit of plus money to the over at plus 105, plus 100, depending where you're at, minus 120, minus 125. Futures, plus 140, 125 to make the playoffs. Miss the playoffs, minus 170 and minus 150. To win the AFC North, 5-1, if not plus 550. To win the AFC, almost good as 20-1 over on FanDuel. And to win the Super Bowl as high as 42-1 over on FanDuel. DraftKings got a little more faith in them, 35-1 there. Yep. I will let you start it off, my friend. Where are you at with this team? Any win totals and futures? I have a feeling you might be more obliged to take some of these numbers.
Well, you see, there's three things in this world that are guarantees. You got to pay your taxes.
Right?
We're all gonna die,
Yep.
and Mike Tomlin's going over 500.
You're damn right
So
he is. Yeah.
I'm once again taking the over 8.5 with the Steelers. I'm also going to take their make playoffs, and just because I get a little bit better odds, I'm also going to take them to win the division at 5-1 as well. You know,
All
I think it only takes a couple key injuries from Baltimore to really knock that team off their ladder. So I'm gonna put a little bit of money on them to win the division. I really feel pretty strongly that they'll go over 8.5 and make the playoffs once again. At the same time, I am going to take them to lose in the wild card round because that's just what they do at plus 320.
That's depressing. So we were gonna win the division
Hey,
there and
if
come
I'm going to
in.
be a fan and I'm going to be disappointed every wild card round, I might as well make some money.
I guess that's a way. All right. Well, okay. Well, I'll back it up a bit because I was with you for the first part. I will also be on Pittsburgh over 8.5 wins at plus 105. There's no longer 16 games, so Mike Tomlin can't go 8-8. You know, he's got to go over 500, so that means at least 9-8 for the Steelers here. I also think they're going to make the playoffs at plus 140. I think it's a good price there. Yeah, look, I think the roster is better. It's really going to come down to the quarterback play and the O-line play, but I
Yep.
think there's reason for optimism on both those fronts. I think the defensive line gets shored up. I like the secondary addition, so I think this is a solid team. They're in a tough division, but they play the Bengals and Ravens historically very well. They own the Browns, so I think it's very doable for them to make the playoffs and win 10 games again.
Yep.
I will stop my train there. I will not be taking the division winner or for them to lose in the wild card round. Although I do like the value at 5-1 plus 550 that you're getting there, and the realism there for the losing the wild card. Any other plays for you for these Pittsburgh Steelers?
Yeah, I for a couple of the other teams in the division, I threw out that they would split the series with the Bengals and the Ravens.
Right.
I do think they'll at least win one against the Browns, if not both. So
Right.
I did take them to win over 2.5 division games at minus 130.
I like that. I mean, they play division well. The Browns, they kind of own them, right? So even if they
Yep.
split with all three, which I can very well see happening,
Yep.
you get here or you take two from the Browns and just need one from the Ravens and the Bengals. I don't think the Bengals and Ravens are that much better than the Steelers. Their offense is sure, but all 22 guys on the field, I think it's a lot more closer to a little bit even running there. So
No doubt.
last play I'll give out here is Jonnu Smith, 8+ receiving touchdowns at plus 350 over on DraftKings. He did this last season. Aaron Rodgers likes tight ends in the red zone. And if he's going to be more of that receiving threat, this offense needs to score touchdowns. The field goals were their Achilles heel last year. Offense couldn't put in the end zone.
Although, if I could have found a Boswell over, I probably would have taken it.
Yes, Boswell is old reliable. But that's why you bring Aaron Rodgers in. You want him to, execute in the red zone and get these touchdowns. He's still shown with Devontae Adams and the Jarrett Wilson that he can kind of sling the rock a little bit there. So I think if Jonnu Smith's going to be in that kind of out wide wide receiver 2 role a little bit, I think, DK Metcalf's going to get all the attention and Jonnu's going to benefit from some of those, that not getting those eyes that DKF's getting. So that is the play there. All right, these Pittsburgh Steelers, we were both on them to continue doing what they do, which is Mike Tomlin going above 500, which means over 8.5 wins at plus money there. Also, both like them to make the playoffs at around plus 140. Derek likes him to win the division at 5-1, but ultimately lose in the wild card at plus 320 there.
Yes.
Likes him in the division over 2.5 wins. And I like Jonnu Smith to take over that wide receiver 2 role and get up with 8 receiving touchdowns on the season for those Pittsburgh Steelers. Let's see how the Steel City adjusts to all this change. We have done it. It's one of our longer episodes, but that's how these go because we're excited. It's a very,
Right.
very competitive division. Derek had to make a case why his Steelers are going to have a great regular season just to fall on their face in the playoffs. Really anticlimactic there. I thought you were going to go all the way. But hey, what do you got for the good people before we get on out of here?
Yeah, I mean, we've made it all the way through the NFC conference. We've made it through the AFC North. I think we're going out west next, but we'll continue on our division preview race, moving through and getting all of these done by the time the Chargers and Lions kick off up in Canton, Ohio. So continue to listen in. We'll probably throw some team previews out after that, and we'll continue to throw out more bet content. But if you're looking for anything specific, throw it in the comments. Reach out to either one of us on X, and we'll probably at least make a short, if not a full episode on some of the things that you guys are looking for.
Yeah, absolutely. Derek hit it well. We are the end of this month. We're gonna finish out these division previews. Then August, we'll get some teams and we'll get a little bit creative. Maybe talk some, Super Bowl winners, maybe some Heisman, some award stuff. We're gonna do a college football episode.
Right.
We're gonna talk injuries because that's gonna be piling up, right? So definitely a lot to look forward to here. But if you missed any of the NFC episodes, check those out. If you want more of the fantasy stuff, head on over to IDP Plus and find us and all of our other great co-hosts over there.
Yep.
And I hope you're just as excited as you are for football. Remember, a lot of these future numbers are only going to get worse. We encourage you, if you agree with us, if you like them, bet them now, as we have done. And it's time for us to get out of here. If you are one of the brave souls that finds yourself still watching this an hour and 35 minutes in, one, thank you. Cheers. We appreciate you. Drop us a like and comment. Let us know. Let us know that you appreciate us. And tell a friend, because that doesn't hurt too. Caring is sharing. All right. Enough of the niceties from the Degen Docs and Professor Locks here at IDP Plus Bets. We are out of here.
Thank you for watching the IDP Plus YouTube network. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Be sure to tap the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload new content.